4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zach Powell.
Well, hello and welcome. Episode number 28 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, the Holy GrAHL. Here at the Holy GrAHL, we are all about the American Hockey League and their yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. Now, before we get too far into this, we're going to go around the screen here, introduce ourselves to anyone who may be new, or, if you just need a recap on who we are, Andrew. Again, you're the A. I'm going to keep it easy because we have a lot to cover in this show, and I don't want to get anything wrong. So make it easy on me. You go first.
For sure. And I love starting us off. So for those who might need a refresher, I'm Andrew Rinaldi. I cover the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins here at Field Pass Hockey. And this is it. We're just wrapping up the regular season. The playoffs are right around the corner. Can you dig it?
Yes, I can't. I'm excited. I am so excited. You have no idea. Hi, y'all. Jeez. Anyway, hello. My name is Deana Weinheimer. We're continuing on with our tradition of this month just being a bit chaotic, a bit unhinged, but hey, it's all good. I am your American Hockey League editor here at fieldpasshockey.com, Cleveland Monsters correspondent, and for the time being, I guess also ECHL Cincinnati Cyclones correspondent. So if you can't wait for playoff action and want it now, well, come on over to the ECHL. We got plenty of that for you.
Absolutely. You'll have to listen to anything that Jason Painter says down there in Cincinnati. Big fan of that guy. But what's up, everyone? My name is Jeremy Paul, and I currently have the pleasure of writing for the Rochester Americans, or writing about the Rochester Americans, I should say, on our site, Field Pass Hockey, in my first season. I have a feeling that I might not be doing that much longer after this week. I think only one of us is going to have a team to write about here. Coming up here pretty soon. But welcome on in. We've got a lot of really, really fun content for you this week. So I'll stop rambling and we'll get on to the content.
I know I say it every time we have a guest on the show that we have a special guest, but we have a very, very underlined, italicized, bold, very special guest, Patrick Williams, correspondent for the AHL.com, NHL.com, on the American Hockey League beat, and a list of other amazing outlets, will be joining us later on in the show to talk about the season that was here in the AHL and some of his picks and insights heading into the postseason and the Calder Cup playoffs. So we're going to try to get through the rest of the show pretty quickly because we know you want to listen to him. I know I want to get to his insights as fast as we can. So we're going to start the show like we do every week with the AHL Player of the Week. And for at least the second week in a row, it's going to a goaltender. This time we're headed to the Central Division, and Texas Stars goaltender Matt Murray. No, not that Matt Murray. This is a different one. This is not Pittsburgh Penguins legend Matt Murray. But this one, he is actually just 1 week into his professional career. And he's already led the Texas Stars to 3 crucial road victories, helping to move them to the brink of a berth in the playoffs. Now, this past Wednesday evening in Milwaukee, Murray stopped 30 shots, 21 of those coming in the third period alone. Wow, how about that for a stat? As Texas earned a 4-1 victory over the Admirals. Then they headed straight to Des Moines for a critical 2-game series over the Wild. And Murray followed a 38-save shutout in Friday's 1-0 victory with a 33-save performance in a 2-1 victory, leaving Texas just 1 point away from securing that final postseason spot in the Central Division. Now for the week, Murray turned aside 101 of 103 shots faced, good for a .67 goals against average and a .981 save percentage. Just like last week, these goaltenders coming out of college, man, are they tearing it up.
Yeah, is that good?
That might be a little good.
Maybe a
I
little
mean,
good, yeah.
this has got to be the biggest Player of the Week award available here, though, because you rattle those stats off. I mean, the most important being the 3-0, and now Texas just needs a point tonight to punch their ticket into the Calder Cup playoffs, and from the depths of the basement at the Central, here they are, and they might be dancing after all. And I mean, I don't want to put squarely on the shoulders of Matt Murray, but it's kind of hard not to when you look at a stat line like that and just the incredible body of work that he's put in just coming right out of college. I'm sure Texas, they probably would have preferred had he dropped out of some of those classes and joined up a little earlier, but hey, they'll take it where they can get it. So congratulations to Matt, and it's unfortunate that you do share the same name with another resident legend in your same position, but we won't forget your performance this week, this season, and hopefully in the future.
All right, we're just going to go ahead and go into the week in review. Now, normally we go over a lot of different types of stories, but this week we are a little bit short on time. Again, we want to reserve as much time as we can for Patrick's interview. So we're just going to go over some milestones here. Now, we're going to start off with another very important milestone for equality in the sport, especially on the AHL ice, and especially for the LGBTQ community in hockey. So this past Saturday night, the Syracuse Crunch hosted their Pride Night game. You might be thinking, well, what's so special about that? Well, one of the officials was Dre Baroneand, who is the first publicly out gay man to officiate an AHL game.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's one of those things where we've talked about it over and over again on the show this year, whether it be women officiating or whether it be, an all-black crew officiating or things like that. Like, we've talked about how much that matters to the sport, and this is one of those key instances where, to your point, I mean, every team does these Pride nights, every team does these Hockey's for Everyone nights, and they kind of turn into this, like, marketing ploy that doesn't really actually mean what they say it means, and maybe that's me being a little bit too critical on it, but when you can actually begin to put representation into these environments, when you can put an openly gay man into an environment to officiate a game and to just show that anybody anywhere can be a part of this sport, it's just a step in the right direction, and it's a step that again, we talk about it, it's like, oh, it's 2022. Why is this this is finally happening? Like, what's going on? But nevertheless, a really cool thing happening over the weekend, and a big win for LGBTQIA plus inclusion in the sport of hockey.
Yeah, retweet. That was perfectly said, Jeremy.
Yeah, I would have to say retweet too with a slight quote tweet. I would just second everything you said. And I agree. A lot of these Hockey is for Everyone, Pride Night events have kind of turned into more of a marketing tactic. But now we're actually seeing in some areas, especially again in the American Hockey League, where they're basically following the mantra. It's not just saying it, they are doing it. And that is the most important part. So once again, great job, AHL, and great job to Dre, who did the work, showed up, and actually got to realize that dream. So
got to control the game. Had a nice control over that one. Is what we're gonna say, right, Tim Peel?
Gotta love when Tim Peel just finds his way into the conversation there.
We always try our best.
Oh, yes. All right. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with these milestones. Now, some fans of the New York Islanders have been waiting for this one to happen all season long, but prospect Aatu Raty finally made his North American debut on Friday night for the Bridgeport Islanders. Now, in 2 games, he hasn't managed to tally any points yet. And I think yet is going to be the key word here. But after spending the season mainly with Yuca with the Finnish Liga, having a bit of a learning curve coming over to North American ice isn't shocking. but he's going to get some ice time. I'm 100% certain headed into the postseason, and who knows, he might be one of those sleeper picks to really make a difference for that team.
And it's really interesting seeing these prospects coming over from Europe. It's one thing to be a young North American prospect coming out of junior, going up against other teenagers and at best young 20-year-olds, but these are guys that are playing against grown men in professional leagues. And there might be some adjustment in the dimensions of the ice surface and anything, but they're just as used to going up against a big bruising defenseman who's put his time in over the last 8 or 9 years and is not going to give you that lane to the front of the net quite so easily, whether it's a larger surface in Europe or it's a smaller surface here. So I think once you see Aatu kind of getting his legs under him a bit, getting a little comfortable with the system, if Bridgeport's making some noise, I think he's a guy who can really kind of come up and really shock some folks, maybe send some higher seeds home early. I mean, I know I'd love to see it, but I'm an agent of chaos, so I can't speak for the rest of the teams up there.
Well, I think it's no secret that we're, for the most part, we're agents of chaos on the entire podcast. So
100%.
But yeah, I mean, he's 40 points in 41 games over in the Finnish Liga this season. In the playoffs, 7 games, 2 points. Pretty good, nice addition late for that team. So we have another AHL debut on Saturday. Yuca Blomqvist made his AHL debut with Wilkes-Barre Scranton in a 3-1 loss against Springfield. But honestly, not a bad start. 25 saves on 27 shots against, honestly, a really tough opponent. Then on the flip side, we do have a first goal alert in a 6-3 victory over Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Hartford's Bobby Trivigno scored his first professional goal, and it was the game winner. Hartford ending the season with a bit of a high note with that. And then, speaking of ending on high notes, we're going to turn our sights to the Cleveland Monsters, where Lyndon Marshall, who is actually a goaltender on an American tryout contract, and if you're not watching us on YouTube, Jeremy is shaking his head. Anyway, yeah, he's on an ATO, secured his first career shutout on Sunday with 38 saves against, you probably guessed it, the Rochester Americans. That was a rough one.
And it's like we talked about, like, off the air, not just, I mean, yes, it's big, right? But I mean, this, like, his previous stat line before this game, an .854 save percentage and a 4.5 goals against average, and he shut out a team that has the likes of JJ Paterka, Michael Mersch, Jack Quinn, Brandon Byron. I mean, like, it's just like goal scorers out the wazoo. And he decides to, as his name sounds, be all sorts of presidential and take it to the Americans, which is just about fitting. And, what can you do? What can you do other than just laugh about it? The Cleveland Monsters playing spoiler to the Rochester Americans. And I must have said Lyndon McKinley. That's not right. That's not right at all. Lyndon Marshall. Is part of that reason.
Well, I did say last week if the Amherst don't get their 4 points here with a cupcake on the schedule, well, you know what they could do? They might as well just pack their bags because they're going to hope for quite a lot of work ahead of them in order to sneak into that north. So
yeah, I'll wait until later for that one.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, great.
I think Jeremy's looking forward to it. I know I am. No, just kidding. But we're going to end this segment with a player that we have done a lot of talking about here on the show. We talked to him earlier on in the season, but did want to mention that Grand Rapids forward Jonatan Berggren has a new franchise record for the most points for a rookie in a season. That came when he notched his 60th point on Sunday. I believe that was against Chicago. Am I right?
Yes, it was. Yep. He had 2 primary assists on Sunday.
Congratulations again. Come on the podcast. Great things happen, guys.
Yeah. I mean, we love talking to him. We'd love to talk to him again. And then a kid that's just been absolutely on fire the last month of the season. I mean, I'm talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his last 8 games in multiple points. And just, I hope that the Griffins kind of cover that chiropractic bill, because Yanni's back has to really be hurting carrying this team down the stretch, trying to pull that roster into the postseason. Doesn't seem to work out here for the Griffins, but not for lack of trying. I mean, it's just some absolutely unbelievable hockey from him. And, Red Wings fans have to be absolutely ecstatic with his development over this season and what he potentially has to bring to the team next year. So congratulations to Jonatan, and I personally can't wait to see more out of this young player.
Well, that was a bit of an oof of a dad joke there, Andrew. And speaking of oofs, we don't have one oof for you today. We have 2 oofs for you today. Both are from a pivotal game between the Chicago Wolves and the Grand Rapids Griffins last Friday night. Now, this was kind of easy decisions for the 3 of us here, because all 3 of us were at the game. So we got to see this in person. And as these events happened, we all just kind of looked at each other like, that's our roof. There it is. So first up, I have clips for both of these, but I'm going to let Andrew talk about this one first. Tell us about Jalen Chatfield's miscue here.
Jalen Chatfield, I just want to know what he was thinking in trying to play that puck that, hey, it's Jonatan Berggren again. It just, whenever he touches the puck, good things seem to happen, even when he doesn't really mean to do it. And this almost looked like a kind of a dump in from him that was going over the net, like clearly over the net. Like if this was an offensive player's stick, the goal would have been called back for high sticking. But they don't have a rule for that for defenders, because Jalen Chatfield decided to reach quite over the crossbar, knock the puck down. Unfortunately, that puck went right behind Jack LaFontaine and tied up the game in a crucial matchup there for the Griffins. So that was a bit of an oof.
All right, we're going to go ahead and show that clip so you can see for yourselves. And, oh yeah, by the way, down low, if you see a bright spot of red, that would be Andrew. And Jeremy and I are right there. We're a little blurry, but we're there. So anyway, here is that clip, and you can decide for yourself. Is this the biggest oof of the week, or is the next one going to be? We'll see in a second.
Was over, put it back into his left hand.
Well, they created a pretty good play, too. Nice little opportunity on the doorstep.
A redirect, they score!
Otherwise, it would have been a high stick, possibly. But, yeah, they're getting Berggren. It's his 20th goal, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Chatfield does touch this puck, and it changes the angle and drops down. And awkward play.
Boy, that is just a tough break for Jack LaFontaine, who's been excellent tonight, and probably like, when am I going to get some breaks?
No kidding.
What I love is while that puck is going in, poor Jonatan Berggren is just on the ice after absorbing a massive hit. He had no clue what was happening there.
He just got the magic touch. He's not even looking at the net, and he's scoring. What can't this kid do?
Fair. All right. Well, next we have an oof that came a little bit later. And quite honestly, this is an oof that could have gone either direction depending on the performance of the goaltender and if a certain player was able to land his shot. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip, and then we will discuss it afterwards.
Into the corner, Wolves go get it out of the line to Chatfield, down the boards to Ponick, poke checked away, and there's a race for the puck. Shine after it. The goaltender LaFontaine comes out. And
he got it.
Steal it in front. They got an empty net and miss it. What a break for Chicago.
Oh, my.
Now from the point, a shot blocked. Loose in front. The Wolves, Chatfield pulls it free and now tapped it ahead to center.
Oh.
Now they cut in. Here's a feed across and they score. That's just with the way this whole season has gone.
I haven't heard the call yet.
in Bob Kaiser's voice. Oh, no.
Oh, my. Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, he's not wrong.
I think that's what hurts the most is that the accuracy of that statement, because I feel for Kyle Criscuolo. He had a rough second half of the season. I mean, between being bounced back and forth between Grand Rapids and Detroit, he ran into a bit of a scoring drought, and he was finally coming out of it and was playing well. And I mean, that's a 2-2 game against a team that Grand Rapids was actually playing Chicago really well the opening half of that game, and they were coming out like a team that really had nothing to lose. It's your season on the line. You had to come away with 2 points, and just my heart breaks for Crisco, because that puck goes wide. 10 seconds later, Chicago does what they do, and in transition they go and burn the Griffins, and then you could just feel the energy in that arena. The season was done, and you could hear it in Bob's voice. My heart broke, and it's a tough one, but that's, Kyle, I don't want to do it to you, but that's an oof.
And what I missed was like Criscuolo actually kind of like blocks the shot that would have probably found its way into the back of the net. Like he gets his stick on it to try to control it, and that puck probably was finding its way into the net if you watch that clip again. And then the other oof is like the three of us behind the net just absolutely losing our mind. Like, what in God's name is LaFontaine doing there? Like, what is happening here? And then the consequential reaction of us realizing that Richard Panik, of all people, just pretty much killed any chance that Grand Rapids had in making that a hockey game.
Yeah, Richard Panik, the antagonizer of the Griffins the entire first period.
Yeah.
Then just gets to double up and play villain again and just stick the dagger into the Griffin season. I mean, they kind of done it to themselves a number of times, the Griffins have, but like it's a lot more poetic when you have an actual villain doing the stabbing instead of, doing it to yourself. So that's a tough way to see the season go. But on the bright side, Grand Rapids wasn't oof of the year. You still got Hartford kind of bailing you out on that one. So, and for Jack LaFontaine, that close to being the oof of the week. You really were that close. I love me some Laffy Taffy, but if you're a goaltender, Jack, 10 the goal.
10 the goal. 10 the goal. Well, instead of talking about some stabbing, how about we talk about some swiping in our segment where we swipe left or swipe right, where we give, the gentlemen will be giving their takes of the week, and then the three of us will vote. Swipe left if we don't like it, swipe right if we do, and then if we really like it, I don't know if anyone's used any super swipe ups. I don't think I have this month, but we still have those super swipe ups if we really like it. So, Andrew, go ahead and take it away.
All right. In my experience, the swiping eventually leads to some stabbing, but that's probably not.
What?
That's probably not. That should probably.
What in the world? Oh no! Oh no!
That should probably get edited out. Okay, sorry.
I don't know.
You just beat Zach's mattress comment by a mile.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh,
I swung
what
through
was
the fences, and that should
Home
probably
run.
get you mute. Okay, so beep. Okay, so I kind of been thinking a lot about like the implications of this final week that we're heading into before the postseason, and talk about some heartbreaks. Wouldn't it be heartbreaking if Stockton just dropped one of those games that they have left here on the road and kind of opened a bit of a door for Chicago to kind of snap that number one overall seed away from them that they've had what it feels like all year long. I mean, that would just break your heart, wouldn't it? So that's why it's going to be my hot take. Yeah, I think, if Stockton might, I mean, maybe it's a shootout loss against those pesky San Diego Gulls, or one way or another. I love the poetry that they just hold the number one seed all season long. And then the last season, Chicago just goes, yoink, thank you very much. And then it could just turn out really fun at the end here.
Yeah, I mean, not to give away too much about our special guest, but they tend to be pretty high on the Gulls, which I mean, yeah. So part of me is like, do I go for it? Like, just because, I mean, knowing that Deana doesn't have a take this week, like, do I super swipe it because I don't want to waste April's, but at the same time, that feels like a lot of passion. Yeah, I'll super swipe it, mostly because I love it. I like the chaos of it. Like, if Chicago could find a way, and I mean, what, Grand Rapids is going to do it to them? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen there? I'm getting some breaking news that Deana might actually have a swipe, so I'm kind of maybe already retroactively regretting this. So stay tuned. I might just use 2 and pay extra this month, but yeah, I'll go for it.
So I had an issue with this profile before I even saw the profile, just because of your comment.
What?
I'm swiping left because, oh my God, Andrew, what was that?
I don't know. I wasn't even thinking.
Yeah, I'm just going to swipe left because of that weird comment at the beginning, and you've totally just messed with my brain. So I will never be the same after that.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jeremy, go ahead before this goes any farther, please.
Oh, anytime. You know what I'm here for. So they always say when you're talking sports betting, there's a rule, and it's if you're ever given 1 or 2 teams against the field, you always pick the field, especially in the playoffs. I'm gonna disagree with that. Like, if you give me Stockton and Chicago to win the Calder Cup against the field, I think I'd take Stockton and Chicago. I think I would take them over the field. For one, I'm going to make more money. But 2, I don't see why not. I don't have an answer for either of those teams other than Calgary taking some of Stockton's depth there, or, Chicago kind of not being able to rely on their goaltending. I mean, that's going to be an interesting piece here moving forward is how does Carolina's goaltending affect Chicago? But those 2 teams haven't given me a reason to doubt them yet.
Of course there's, as we get into this portion of the year, there's no details given on the, how serious or not injury is or what a player is dealing with. And I think there has been a lot of rumblings that game 1, Carolina is going to be starting Pyotr Kochetkov. But there's a lot of indications that Antti Ranta and Freddie Anderson are going to be back for round 1. So Kochetkov might start game 1, maybe even bleed into game 2. But I think even if he comes in and is lights out, and this just went final, Carolina just beat the Rangers. Peter Kochetkov is now 3-0 in the NHL. This kid just does not stop winning no matter what league it is. Well, he didn't win a whole lot in the KHL, but his team was kind of, sorry, Andy Mealy. Anyway, Chicago is just, I think we've kind of had a bit of a glimpse of it, and I know it was Grand Rapids, okay? I know, Grand Rapids. Ugh. Sometimes this team possesses the puck so much, it really doesn't matter who's in net. It really doesn't. And I think Jack LaFontaine is the kind of guy who's going to hold it up just enough until Kochetkov comes back from his nice little stint and being the Carolina Hurricanes' number one guy. On the flip side, Stockton, the only thing that concerns me about this is just that whole Pacific Division. I don't even know if Stockton's going to be the team that comes out. Right now, I believe Dustin Wolf just got called up to Calgary, right? So they're kind of, I mean, not that they're a team that totally relies on him, but in the playoffs, your goalie's got to be your most important player. If your goalie's leaky, the rest of your team is just not feeling it. It's hard to get momentum, hard to get it back going, especially when it's so important there in the postseason. But again, who matches up to him? Who you give me Stockton, you give me Chicago. Who matches up? You can make an argument for Ontario. I'll give you that until I learned last week that they're I forget his name. I feel so awful because we just said it, but they one shutout, and in a playoff series where everything's going to be tighter checking, everything is going to be, you make that one mistake and that's going to be it. Do we rely on Ontario's net minding to carry them through a series with Abbotsford, say? I don't know. I think I will take Spencer Martin over any goalie that the Reign throw out there. I think I would take Dustin Wolf over any goalie that's in the Pacific. I think I'm just kind of talking in circles and saying I'm trying to make an argument to tell me, like, no, but you stack them up against any other roster. And barring some kind of emergency call-up, yeah, I'm swiping right because I think they're just head and shoulders above. They're Chicago and Stockton, and then the rest of the league is a step below them.
Now, if this was Chicago and Ontario, I think I personally would super swipe that because I'm a little concerned about possible, I guess, Calgary taking too many players away from Stockton as the playoffs go on. Whereas I don't believe, are the Kings in playoff contention?
Yeah, they're currently they'll make it.
Yeah.
They should at least. I mean, it would have to be a colossal failure and a lot of weird other things.
Okay. Well, then that just totally nullifies the point I was going to make. I'm having a very rough episode. So I'm just going to say I'm going to swipe right. I'm not sure on that Pacific Division pick. I do kind of like Ontario just because I mean, even if you look at Calgary versus LA, which team's probably going to go farther in the playoffs? More than likely, it's going to be Calgary. So there's the better chance of call-ups happening later on, which could just do Stockton in. So, but I will still give a right swipe, just not enough for that super swipe. Right.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at some debuts and some first in the National Hockey League in a segment we like to call They Grow Up So Fast. So we kind of talked about it last week, but it officially happened. Mitchell Chaffee, a veteran of 76 games with the Iowa Wild, did end up making his NHL debut with the Minnesota Wild back on April 19th against Montreal, where he had 11 shifts in 7 minutes and 33 seconds of ice time. Then a couple of days later, we had a couple of debuts. First, out of Lehigh Valley, defenseman Linus Hogberg debuted with the Philadelphia Flyers on April 21st against the Montreal Canadiens. In 17 minutes and 25 seconds of ice time, he did tally 1 assist. Next up, Nikita Ohotuk out of Utica. Now, the young defenseman also made his debut on the 21st, but he was with the Devils against the Buffalo Sabres. 1 goal in 19 shifts and 15 minutes and 53 seconds in your debut. Pretty darn good. I mean, in the 3 games in the NHL that he's played so far, 1 goal, 1 assist. And then we have another quick start for another forward. This time it's Frederick Carlstrom out of the Texas Stars in his debut with Dallas versus the Calgary Flames that we just talked about. He had 1 assist on 15 shifts and 7 minutes and 46 seconds of ice time. Now, this was a long time coming for this debut, but April 22nd, Boko Imama had 4 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time. Now, his debut was on the 22nd against the Washington Capitals, but the game that we're really going to talk about is his second game where he scored his first NHL goal coming against the St. Louis Blues. Now, this was a really fun goal to watch. It was a really hard battle to the net for the goal. And yes, possibly the best part of this story is his parents were present. Now, because this is an NHL clip, we can't show the clip here, but please go watch it. It is incredibly heartwarming. The reactions of his parents and his family it was amazing. I can't form words to accurately describe it, but you could tell how much that meant to the family. And it's so great to see someone who has worked so hard as he has to finally get NHL ice time and his first goal. He is a veteran of 207 games in the AHL. Now he's an NHL goal scorer. And then Andrew brought this up a little bit earlier, but on April 23rd, I'll let you take this part here, Andrew.
It's a tough one. It took me a while. Pyotr Kochetkov, he made his NHL debut on the 23rd, and he made 17 saves in a win against the New Jersey Devils and picking up his first win in his first NHL game. But guess what? The next day on the 24th, Kochetkov was called in again with an injury to Antti Ranta. So he made 7 saves against the Islanders for his second win in his second game. And as I alluded to tonight, he is now 3 for 3, which now I believe puts his North American record up to 18-1-1 between the NHL and the AHL. I'm not great with math, but I think that's good. So, congratulations to Pyotr for that one. I mean, he's been absolutely nothing short of incredible to start this season off.
I'm a writer, not a mathematician, but I can confirm that is good. All right, next up, we have a very, very special guest joining us here at the Holy GrAHL, Patrick Williams. And Patrick has been on the American Hockey League beat for nearly 2 decades for outlets including NHL.com, Sportsnet, TSN, The Hockey News, Sirius XM NHL Network Radio, Slam Sports, and now the AHL.com. He was also the recipient of the AHL's James H. Ellery Memorial Award for his outstanding coverage of the league in 2016. Now, again, we are welcoming him to the Holy GrAHL to discuss the season that was and to get his insight into the upcoming Calder Cup playoffs. So, Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I gotta say, I just want to kind of say as a personal, Patrick, I think you kind of set the standard for other writers such as myself. So it's an honor having you on here. I kind of want to start off. We've had a hot topic, to kind of, pun intended in a way, on this podcast has been the Yuca Comets. And I mean, they started off the year red hot, but the second half of this season, they've been kind of lukewarm. And I mean, they might be the most vulnerable looking division leader heading into the postseason. And for you, what have you seen from your end that they've been missing since that hot first half?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I've asked myself that question as well. I've asked your comments that question as well. I don't know how much of it is the fact that they got off to such a hot start that naturally is going to take away some of the urgency that most teams have to face to one degree or another in the second half of the year. I mean, that 13-0 start just gave them such a cushion by really, the middle part of November. And from there, they had to play the next 5+ months. So I think that would, kind of take almost the same approach as if a team was really far out. Maybe if a team started 0-13 and the season was pretty much lost right off the bat. Well, it's almost sort of the same dynamic, just in the opposite direction for them. I think the challenge for them is going to be, how do you ramp up this intensity now? You've kind of been able to cruise a little bit for so long now, and now you're going to go into a playoff series against a quality opponent, whoever it does end up being. So I do agree that they're a little bit vulnerable in that sense. I think everybody's a little bit vulnerable, quite frankly, coming in, because even if you skip that best of 3 playing rounds, you're still starting off with a best of 5, and those can be really tricky series. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, they're getting into this postseason now with New Jersey being done for the year, so they don't have to worry about that. But they also do have this challenge of trying to kind of kickstart their whole season after being able to play so long, kind of, I don't want to say on cruise control, but something close to cruise control.
So kind of branching off of Andrew's question here, I'm going to turn our sights to the Hartford Wolfpack. Now, We've talked about them the last few weeks on this show because they looked really solid to start the season, and then they just had this meteoric fall out of the playoff race. So I'm just kind of curious about your take on them, and if you have any insight into what happened here within about the past month and a half or so.
Well, they for starters, they lost their captain, Johnny Brodzinski. He was for a while, he was almost scoring out a goal per game clip. So that was the first problem. And then they lost Morgan Barron at the NHL trade deadline in the trade with the Winnipeg Jets. So right off the bat, you took 2 big pieces of their lineup, and they weren't able to really replace that talent. They made some other moves, obviously, the Tarmo Reunanen deal, which brought in Maxim Latunov, which I thought worked out reasonably well. But, all of a sudden, like, you've played one way for 5 months, and now you take maybe your top 2 offensive players right out of the mix in Barron and Brodzinski. So that was an issue. Now, that being said, lots of teams had to deal with loss of personnel, especially this season. And they're still able to overcome that, or at least stop the bleeding. And so, this Hartford fall was, I don't say unprecedented, but it was something close to that, because, I mean, they were a team at one point contending for first place. And not only did they not make it, they didn't make it in a season which 23 of 31 clubs do make it. So, you have to be pretty far out of the mix, and fall pretty hard to not qualify this season. And yet they somehow managed to do that.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to be talking about and maybe studying here for a bit to come. But I want to kind of turn our sights over to the Western Conference now and talk about the Abbotsford Canucks. Now, of course, it's their first season as a franchise, and they have been through it between, of course, initial growing pains, navigating changing COVID protocols, and then they had those massive floods out in British Columbia. I mean, this team has had its more than their fair share of issues, but finished the back half of the season extremely strong, making the playoffs. What insight can you share on this squad?
Yeah, they're a team. I think they've been quietly becoming a very dangerous opponent, especially in the second half. Lately, especially, I mean, they're doing this without Sheldon Drives, who's, one of the top centermen in the league, and, a guy that, can play a top 3 role. And yet they've been able to continue to kind of just churn through, a really difficult division. I mean, they're getting a steady diet of Stockton, Ontario, Henderson, Bakersfield, some real high quality opponents. Colorado, another one. So it's not a division where you really get any kind of nights off, and yet they've been able to really have a strong second half here, and they're dangerous. I think, especially with the Vancouver Canucks, not being in the playoffs this year at the NHL level. So you don't have to worry that you're going to be 2 or 3 games into your first round, and all of a sudden the NHL club, needs your number one goalie and your top center or what have you. So, and I think the other thing to worry about Abbotsford or to consider with them is just they have a really tough travel schedule, just the nature of their geography. So they're able to overcome that. I think really get themselves into a good place going into the playoffs. So they're kind of a team I would not want to see early on in the playoffs, because I think they're definitely a potential spoiler type of club going into the postseason.
We definitely love sleeper picks here on the Holy Grail. So we'll be looking out for the Canucks this postseason. But talking about a team that just might fall short of the postseason, and that's the Rochester Americans. It's going to take a lot of help from Toronto and a win against Utica to make their way into the Calder Cup playoff field. And with the likes of players like JJ Peterka, Michael Mersch, Jack Quinn, how disappointing would it be if they missed the playoffs, or are we overreacting, and should we have maybe expected this with the defense and the goaltending that the Amerks have in place?
Yeah, I think honestly, given how many teams make it, almost 3/4 of the league make in the postseason, I think to not make it for almost any team has to be considered a disappointment, especially with some of the talent they do have. Peterka, Quinn, Mersch, some real high quality pieces that any team in the league would be happy to have. So that's the first part. I think the second part is, obviously the Buffalo Sabres are still undergoing a massive rebuilding, process, I guess, for lack of a better term. And, part of that is getting guys like Peterka and Quinn, and Luukkonen and so on, some real bona fide playoff experience. Not only just making it, but also maybe going a couple rounds. Now, like you said, they're going to be hard pressed to actually qualify, and you can't be real happy with, especially this past weekend. I mean, you lose back-to-back games with Cleveland, a team that's been out of the mix now for a couple months. You just can't have that, and that's the story I found with the Amerks all year is just, one night they look fantastic and they look like they could play against any team in the league. And then the next night they look completely, like not a playoff team. So, so they have a rough go of it now. You're going to have to beat the Yuca Comets, and you're going to have to hope that the Toronto Marlies kind of stumble themselves. And now neither one of those things is beyond the realm of possibility. The Marlies have kind of been a similar story to the Amerks. Good one night, bad the next. But I think it would be a real loss of an opportunity for those young prospects to not actually be able to go through postseason play.
So we've again spent a bit of time talking about some of the breakout scorers here on the show, namely TJ Tynan and Andrew Podorowski. But I know you just wrote a great feature on Tynan, so I just want to talk about him in just a little bit more detail. Of course, he's aiming for membership in that Century Club with 98 points in 61 games so far, so close to that 100 mark. I mean, the Reign has 1 game remaining, and it's against Henderson on Saturday. So I just want your opinion. Do you think he's going to make it? And what's been his keys to success just overall in his tenure in the AHL? I mean, previous Calder Cup winner, he's always getting around like 40, 50 plus points a season. What is his secret?
Secret, he's very smart. He's very, very hard worker. And he's been able to overcome, obviously being a smaller type player, around 5'9", and maybe that 170 something range. Playing in a league where size is still a very key component for many players, and he's been able to adapt, and obviously this year he's in an opportunity to play with a guy like Marty Ferk. So just kind of your classic 1-2 combination there. You have the setup man like Tynan, and then you have, as Tynan said, somebody with one of the best shots in the world in Ferk. I mean, at any level. So to put them together, and to have that mix with such a deep collection of prospects that the LA Kings have, still in Ontario, even after graduating several players up to the Kings, I think is real testament to the level of talent that's around him. But he's been impressive in the sense that he's been able to do this all season long. Like teams key on him every night, and he still kind of just shrugs it off and goes out and puts up a couple points. And I thought the most impressive stat for him was 61 games so far for him. He's had a point in all but 11 of them. And I think just to have that level of consistency on a nightly basis, especially in this league where your lineups are changing nonstop around you, I think is really impressive. So he's been a real solid player for a long time, and then especially the last couple of years, I think has really blossomed. Obviously, he was an MVP last year, so this isn't altogether unsurprising. But I think for him to have continually been able to take it to another level, I think is really maybe the most impressive part of all of what he brings.
Continuing on with our chat with Patrick Williams here on the Holy GrAHL podcast. And as we turn our focus here to the postseason, I mean, anyone who follows the sport will tell you that, once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So of all the lower seeded teams that are coming in from these play-in rounds here, who do you think has the best chance at kind of making a run outside of the division bracket?
Yeah. And, anything can happen in the postseason. I think that goes, double, triple in this league, where you just get massive swings sometimes of talent. If you're in the right position and your opponent or yourself has a roster change or two, you're generally talking, the top 3 or 4 players that would come off a roster. So, I mean, that can swing things dramatically. So, I mean, that's why I've always kind of said I don't do playoff picks really anymore, because that very reason. You just don't know what roster you're going to have from one night to the next. But I think one of the teams that really could be dangerous in that sense is Milwaukee, in the sense that you have Connor Ingram. And I think he gives you not only a chance to win every night, I think he can steal games on a somewhat regular basis. For my money, really, quite possibly the top goalie in the league from start to finish all year, and also a workhorse. He leads the league in games played, and despite that, he's been able to continue keep his level at a high standard. And Milwaukee's been a team that's they had a really rough start. They were kind of down near the bottom of the Central Division, and now here they are late in the year, and they're gunning for third place. And I think they'll have a good chance of getting that. Here, depending on what Rockford does, they play at the end of the week, so kind of a chance for both clubs to determine their fate a little bit. But I would not want to see Connor Ingram at the other end of the ice if I'm a first-round opponent. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, covering 2 Central teams this year, I've seen a whole lot of Connor Ingram, and I can echo that sentiment. I mean, he's a guy who can just take over a whole game, and in a playoff series where your goalie has to be the most important player, I tend to agree with you. At Milwaukee can be as dangerous as any other team out there. But I know you just said that you don't really kind of make these big playoff picks, but kind of conversely, on the other end, who do you think might be kind of a paper tiger, maybe a divisional powerhouse, a 1-2 seed that might just kind of crash and burn once they come outside of their bracket, or maybe even inside their bracket?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think it really comes down to whose NHL parent club has a pretty solid chance to go far. And I would put the Springfield Thunderbirds in that category now. I think that would be a real tough break for Springfield in the sense that that's a city that's kind of been starved for playoff hockey for a long time. And this is their chance, first year of their affiliation with the St. Louis Blues. But I think, St. Louis has a chance, I think anyway, to do some real damage in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then when that happens, obviously that can really put a strain on the American League team. And they've already had some losses. I think most notably was Nathan Walker, a big piece of their lineup that was taken away last month. So I think they're a little bit vulnerable in that sense. Now, I would hate to really kind of bet against them, but just when you start to look at kind of how things may shake out, and especially if you potentially get a real dangerous opponent, like a Providence, for example, early on, and you get the wrong mix that way. I think it could be a real dangerous position for any team in that kind of situation.
Yeah, without a doubt. And as we look at the teams that are going to find themselves in the playoffs, we've got some really great comeback stories there, whether that's because a team didn't play last year or just because they've improved drastically. So just wondering, which team would you give your comeback team of the year award to?
That's interesting because last year was so chaotic and you didn't really have really a cohesive league last year. Everybody was trying to do their own thing, playing their own number of games. You had kind of a swing of San Diego, for example, played 44. Other teams were in the mid-20s. You had a team like Providence that played 2 opponents all year. But I think, if you were trying to look at a comeback team, I would say Wilkes-Barre Stratton. They were a very raw team last year, and they were getting a steady dose of the Hershey Bears almost on a nightly basis, it seemed like. And that kind of carried over into this year. They had a pretty rocky start to their year, really the first half, and I think they've really come along nicely. JD Forrest, the head coach there, I think has done a really good job there. I won't say they're necessarily the most talented team around, but they play a very rambunctious, very aggressive, energetic style that I think has really suited them well. And so they're a team I think that has come along quite nicely. And, if you go back to where they were a year ago to where they are now.
So I want to know, in your mind, the biggest surprise, good and bad, this season, whether it's a player, a team, a coach, or maybe just a storyline.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say for me that one of the most positive surprises has been the Belleville Senators. Again, they're a team where the parent club is obviously rebuilding. Obviously, Ottawa is a team that has had its fair share of chaos in the last several years, and yet Troy Mann, I think, has done a fantastic job there behind the bench, getting every last bit of performance out of his team. And they're a team that obviously, a lot of kind of the plans that you have going into the year don't come to fruition just because the NHL club is going through its own situation. So every night, though, and they become really one of the most dangerous opponents in the entire league. Another team I would not want to see in the first round is Belleville. I think Troy Mann has just been such a good head coach in this league for almost the better part of a decade now, and really has a finger on his team and able to kind of tweak things as necessary to really maximize what he does have in the lineup on a night-to-night basis. So I would say them would be a positive. I think really if you stay right in that division, for me, a disappointment has been the Toronto Marlies. I think they're a team that did come in with a lot of talent this year, and the fact that they're now in the final week of the year and they're having to really sweat out, a playoff spot and try to hopefully for their sakes squeak in. I would think if I were the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd be fairly disappointed about the kind of how this season has unfolded for the American Hockey League team. So those would kind of be my two positive or not so positive teams for this season.
Again, I know we discussed you don't make big predictions, but let's say in a hypothetical total fantasy scenario that, the NHL teams above this league are, for the most part, okay heading into the playoffs, and we get through these first couple rounds and everything seems kind of kosher. What would your prediction be for each conference, East and West, at least the favorite to kind of come out for all things considered, so long as the roster's case stays somewhat stabilized, and who would be your favorite to take it between those two teams?
Okay, so the Atlantic Division, I really like Charlotte. I think Jordy Kinnear, head coach down there, has done a really fantastic job balancing having a dual affiliation. Those are not easy in the best of circumstances, especially now you have an expansion team as one of those parent clubs. I like them. They've been really, really hot the better part of the last 2 months. And with having Seattle not make the playoffs, for example, that leaves Joey Decord there now to come in, and he's up right now with Seattle, but come back to the Checkers for the first round. Now they're in a weird situation because they have that bye for the best of three, and their season actually has already ended regular season wise. So they're looking at the better part of 2 to 3 week break, which I don't love for their sake, but it is a chance to heal up. It is a chance to kind of almost have a mini training camp, really get everybody on the same page, everybody in the same place. So I think that really bodes well for them. Coming out of that North Division, obviously I have to go with Utica still. Just I think they do have the talent, certainly to come out of that division. I will say Syracuse still, though, the way they've come on in the second half, they played when their season ends this week, they will have played 55 games in about 110 days. Just an incredible stretch. They were able to overcome of all the teams that went through kind of that December, January chaos with COVID. I don't think any team had more than they did in terms of disruption, and yet they've once again, Ben Grew, the head coach here, has been able to kind of work his magic, and it takes a while for his teams often to find their footing, but when they do, they're really dangerous. But I'll still go with Utica from that division. Chicago, I think, in the Central is you have to go with them, right? With the sheer talent that they have. And I think Ryan Warsofsky's a fantastic head coach. So I'll go with them. And then from the Central Division, or I should say the Pacific, that is going to be a real tough battle. You have Stockton and you have Ontario right at the top. I'll go with Ontario. I just like everything about their team. They've had a kind of a real unique situation. John Wroblewski, the head coach, had to step aside back in December. Chris Height, Craig Johnson, the assistant coaches have been running that team ever since. Done a fantastic job. A great mix of high-end character veteran players like a TJ Tynan and Ferk, Cameron Gauntz, Brett Sutter right down the list with a probably the best base of prospects in that league. So I think I'll go with Ontario to come out of that division, but it's going to be one of those situations where if you do come out of that division, it's either you're going to be so kind of run down by having gone through that gauntlet, Or you could be a team that really, because you have gone through that experience, by the time you get to that Western Conference final, you could be a really dangerous opponent. But I really like what Ontario has to offer this year.
Yeah, I really think, that's going to be like the conference to watch here going into the playoffs. I mean, of course, it's going to be exciting regardless, but that Western Conference, they've got my attention.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? 1 through 7 in that division, if any one of those teams came out, it wouldn't shock me. Even right down to San Diego, they've kind of been a up and down team this year, but you have Joel Bouchard there as the head coach. Real smart, savvy head coach. You have Henderson. Depending, I guess, what happens with the Vegas Golden Knights, I think that could influence their fortunes a little bit. But any one of those teams are dangerous. There are no kind of pushover teams. There are no walkover teams. And again, that best of 3, I think, really throws a whole different sort of curveball into things where, it's amazing. You look at a team like Ontario, one of the top 5 teams all year. They have to do a best of round against San Diego, best of 3 first round against San Diego. I mean, that is not an easy task. Not much of a reward for, having had such a strong regular season, but if you can come out of that division, I think you will be very tested already. And, I think you'll be able to really run those last 2 rounds of obviously the Western Conference final and then the Calder Cup final itself, in a very strong fashion. So, this is what the American Hockey League playoffs really entail. It's such a great opportunity for young prospects to see the highest level of hockey you're going to see outside of the NHL. And every single player will tell you just the level of play from the American League regular season into the playoffs, and especially for teams that go deep, is just a very dramatic jump. And, it's almost like you're playing in a mini NHL in a lot of ways.
No doubt. And I know we just talked about earlier on the show, but it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, not too often does a parent club and their AHL affiliate both win their regular season divisions. So it'll be interesting to see how that deep playoff run that Calgary's poised to make is going to affect Stockton. But as we look ahead, Andrew made you pick the teams. I'm going to ask you to pick the player. Which player, once we round out this Calder Cup playoff, is going to have had the most impact on their team throughout the entirety of the postseason?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll go with Chicago, and I'll go with Andrew Podorowski. He's done it once already. He was the MVP of the 2019 final back when they were with the Charlotte Checkers as a Carolina affiliate. I have no reason to pick against him now. He's been fantastic ever since then. Led the league in scoring last year, came back now, and is also, along with TJ Tynan, possibility to hit 100 points. And that would be, this league, that's a fantastic achievement in a lot of ways. So I'll go with Podorowski. I think between him and Stefan Nason and that group in Chicago, he's the one that really kind of stirs the drink there and makes them a team that's, when they're on a roll, they can just almost run teams over because they're that talented.
A man after my own heart, Patrick.
I mean, I would have to say, I mean, that's probably the smart pick. I mean, this past weekend, all 3 of us, Jeremy, Andrew, and myself, we actually got to go watch Grand Rapids and Chicago together, really close down on the ice. And just to see a different vantage point of that Chicago squad, and just the way that Podorowski handles himself minute by minute is amazing. And I don't see why that wouldn't continue into the playoffs. But we have one more question for you. And this is just going to be on a personal level. You started writing for the AHL.com this season, just another outlet on, another outlet on your huge list of places that you've written for, contributed to. I just want to know, what has that been like? And do you have a favorite story or interview from this inaugural season writing for the site?
Yeah, first off, it's been great. It's been fun in the sense that I've been able to do so many different types of stories this year. It's not just typically prospect X, is 20 years old, a first round pick. He's on the fast track to the NHL, Like, being able to really hit on a lot of different topics, everything from the Dollar Loan Center in Henderson opening. Spoke with Troy Bodie and Coachella Valley on everything that goes into starting up an AHL team from scratch. I thought that was really interesting. Several charity stories. The Pot of Gold night in Colorado was a lot of fun to do that. Just an amazing situation that the Colorado Eagles have put together there to help a family going through a really difficult situation. And then I really enjoyed, a couple weeks ago, I got to sit down with Courtney Mahoney from the Wolves, who, by my calculations, is one of the most senior team front office people in the entire league. She's been there since 1996, all the way back to their International Hockey League days. It kind of has just done everything except maybe drive the Zamboni for that team at one point or another. And, she's a really interesting person to speak with. If you want to really know how the hockey business works, especially at this level, she's a fantastic person to speak with. And she was really forthcoming, really had a lot of insight, and has kind of been along for the ride through the entire kind of shift of the landscape of minor league hockey, all the way back to the 90s when kind of you had that first big boom in teams, all the way till now, where you're looking at a league that is coast to coast and playing in places I never thought you would see the American Hockey League, like Palm Springs or what have you. And she's been along the entire way, so I really enjoyed doing that piece with her, and I thought it ended up turning out really well.
Well, Patrick, that's going to be it for our interview. I want to say thank you so much. I know you are incredibly busy keeping your eye on this league, and we are in the last week. So I hope you have a great postseason and off-season, and thank you again for sharing your wealth of information with us here today.
Absolutely. Entirely my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so we already took a little bit of a look into the playoff field in our chat with Patrick, but we're going to go ahead and deep dive a little bit here. The playoff picture as it stands as of our time recording on April 26th on Tuesday. By the time you hear this on Thursday, there's a chance that all of these spots could be filled. We really don't know, but here is how it stands as we are recording at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. So one thing that won't change is the Atlantic Division. It is all filled out now with Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Hershey, and Bridgeport all clinching the final three spots last Friday night. The Penguins back in the postseason after missing out in 2019. And actually, this team has qualified in 16 consecutive seasons before missing out that 1 year. Now, on the other hand, Hershey, they're heading back to the playoffs for the 13th time since beginning their affiliation with the Capitals back in the 2005 and 2006 season, and for the 69th time overall. Go ahead.
Nice.
You never let me down, guys. I appreciate you. Now, Bridgeport qualifying for the second consecutive postseason. Of course, the last postseason in the Atlantic Division was back in 2019. But they will be vying for their first series victory, get this, since 2003.
Wow.
We're going to go ahead and skip over the North because we're just going to go in chronological order here. Rockford, Central Division, clinching their berth on Saturday night with a 5-3 victory over the Manitoba Moose. This is going to be their first postseason appearance since 2018, where actually they reached the Western Conference Finals. And then finally, Sunday evening, the North Division becoming a little bit more clear when Rochester lost. We already talked about this, 2-0 to the Cleveland Monsters. With that result, Syracuse, Belleville, and Laval all moved on to their Calder Cup playoff berths. The Senators and Rocket both heading there for the first time. They both entered the AHL back in 2017. Of course, Belleville that top affiliate of the Ottawa Senators, was in first place in the North Division when the 2019 and 20 season was suspended and then ultimately canceled due to the COVID pandemic. Laval, top affiliate of the Canadiens, won the Canadian division during that abbreviated 2021 season. We do already have a couple series set as well, but let's just go ahead and talk about the entire playoff picture. Right now, the only room left, there is one seed left in the North Division and one seed left in the Central Division. So in the North, it's the Toronto Marlies and the Rochester Americans vying for that number 5 seed. Toronto, their magic number is 4. They have 3 games remaining. Actually, all 3 games are on the road, but they are staying up in Canada. So hopefully, I guess for Toronto fans, the close trips will make it a little bit easier for the team to go ahead and secure that, but they will be at Laval in a back-to-back Wednesday and Thursday, and then at Belleville on Saturday. And then for the Rochester Americans, with 1 game remaining, that magic number is 5. They are at home versus the Yuca Comets, which again are North Division champs, on Friday night, needing a lot of help from Toronto. I guess basically needing help from Laval and Belleville. I guess that's the one you want the most help from.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it. They're going to need Toronto to only pick up a maximum of 2 points. They're going to need to lose 2 of those 3 games in regulation. If they win one of those games and pick up another point in overtime anywhere else, it's done.
And then in the Central Division, vying again for the number 5 spot are the Texas Stars and the Iowa Wild, both with 1 game remaining. However, the Texas Stars have a magic number of 1, whereas the Iowa Wild have a magic number of 4. But because this is the AHL in 2022 and everything's weird and chaotic, they're still technically in this playoff picture. But the Texas Stars are playing on Tuesday night against Manitoba, where currently it is a 2-2 tie with 14:47 remaining in the third period. And then the Iowa Wild are at home against the Rockford Ice Hogs tomorrow night. I guess it'd be last night by the time you're listening to this. It's on Wednesday.
This one will be settled by the time it comes out, which is the beauty of. I mean, since when does the AHL play games on Tuesday and Wednesday regularly? What's going on? It's all these rescheduled games.
It's all the rescheduled games.
But Texas has had 6 power plays this game, and Manitoba has had 0. If I was Iowa, I'd be calling the league office and saying what
kind of game management.
What's going on behind the scenes there? Oh my! What? We got to get Tim Peel into that game.
I'm telling you.
Oh no! No.
That's the second Tim Peel reference on this episode.
That'll just be the title, I guess. Tim Peel.
Tim Peel
or Patrick Williams. Take your pick.
Peeling back the playoffs is what we're going to call it.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. All right. So let's just go ahead and look at how the seeding is shaping up. So again, this playoff picture is a little bit crazy. So in the first round, it is a best of 3. Right now in the Atlantic, the only series that is set is the 4 and 5 seeding between Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins and the Hershey Bears. Right now, the higher seed, the 3 and 6, is either going to be Springfield or Providence against the Bridgeport Islanders. Now, right now, Charlotte has a bye into the division semifinals, and then whoever comes out higher out of Springfield or Providence will also be getting a bye into the division semifinals of the Atlantic. In the North, it's a lot more convoluted. Right now, the only thing set is the Yuca Comets getting their bye into the division semifinals, and then it's up in the air. There's only one first round matchup that's going to be 4 or 5. So that's either going to be Syracuse Laval or Belleville or Toronto in that number 4 spot, or Laval, Toronto, or Rochester in the 5th spot. So
messy.
Right. So the winner of that will go on to play Utica. And then in the second round, you'll get either Syracuse or Laval or Belleville. 2 of those 3 teams will be playing each other in that next round.
Throw the whole division into a blender and see what comes out.
Correct.
Basically. Okay, moving on to the Central. Very similar to the North Division. The only first round best of 3 is the 4 and 5 matchup. So you're going to have Milwaukee or Rockford going up against Texas or Iowa. The winner of that will go on to play the Chicago Wolves. And then in the 2-3 matchup in the second round, you have the Manitoba Moose that are locked into that number 2 spot, facing off against either basically the higher seed of Milwaukee or Rockford at the end of the season. A little bit more clear is going to be the Pacific Division. The Chaos Division is one of the more clear-cut ones. Go figure. So they have a much larger first round. So you have 2nd seed Ontario versus the 7th seed San Diego Gulls. 3rd seed will either be Abbotsford, Colorado, or Bakersfield going up against the number 6 seeds Henderson Silver Knights. 4, you have Abbotsford or Colorado or Bakersfield playing off against, well, one of those 3 teams again. And then in the second round, you have Stockton getting the bye. They will be playing the lowest seeded first round winner. And then the other matchup will be the highest seeded first round winner versus the middle seed first round winner. Got it? Good. Don't worry. I'm not going to quiz you.
I will.
Thank goodness.
So basically the teams that are out are Hartford, Lehigh Valley, Cleveland, Grand Rapids, Tucson, and San Jose.
Real tough when you look at it, and 3 of the 4 beats represented tonight. Probably not going to make it. It's a for sure here, and it's probably over here.
It's so tough, especially whenever so many teams make it in, and you look, and it's like the bottom 2 teams out of each division don't. That's a tough pill to swallow for sure.
We'll eliminate the hosts on the show as things go on. So I guess maybe Andrew, Michael, and Zach can take it from here.
Have fun, guys. Peace.
Bye.
Do I cut half myself off, or do I just like wear a mask?
Phantom of the Opera mask.
Phantom of the Opera mask. Yeah.
It's like I'm out. Yeah, we'll just have to put like a piece of cardboard like going over half of your screen. I guess.
There you go.
Just a note that says right behind you, definitely not also the Grand Rapids Griffins beat writer.
I don't even know that guy.
We will have to work on that. But real quick, guys, it's going to be a crazy final stretch here with just a few games remaining, just a handful of games to pick from, but some potential pivotal matches. So what's on your docket this week in your game of the week?
So over in the Atlantic, I'm going with Friday's matchup. We got Providence going into Springfield, and the second seed in the Atlantic and a first round bye is on the line in this one. And some teams might just be going through the motions with these games at the end of the season, but this one ought to have a big playoff feel to it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's the only one that matters, really. In what Deana just said about the implications of which of those 2 teams is going to be 2 and 3, it's the only game that matters, so give it to me.
And then as we kind of move on over to the north here, we're going with what would be tonight's game with Toronto going into Laval. And who would have thought that the Marlies would have taken us down to the wire here? They need 2 wins in their last 3 games to clinch. And, again, it's kind of all about, what implications we can find in this last week and where the biggest impacts are. So this is the biggest one I feel out of the North.
The best thing that's going for the Americans in their attempt to make the playoffs is that every team, with the exception of the Monsters and the Comets, have something to play for. The seeding is so wacky in the North, and every seed matters. And so you've got to hope that Laval can find a way to keep Toronto out of the playoffs. And if they find a way to snatch the 2 games against Toronto, then that really opens the door for Rochester, who will play Utica at home on Friday. Obviously, if Toronto's won both of those games against Laval, this game does not matter at all. But if they've won one of the 2, or if they've lost both, this game's going to matter quite a bit, and might even give Toronto the chance to clinch on Saturday against Belleville. So so many good games to watch in the North this weekend.
Moving on over to the Central, where depending on tonight's results might not be as much drama, but we still got a little bit. You go to Friday, we got Rockford going into Milwaukee. And again, it's all about implications. The winner of this game, they likely just went this game likely decides the 3 seed in the Central. Wow, that was a mouthful. And that's going to be the difference between getting that first round bye and taking on Manitoba, who, for all intents and purposes, looks like a bit of an easier hill to climb than fighting through that first round play-in series just to go in and see Chicago.
Yeah, that's going to be important. Not being in that play-in game series is going to be very important for whoever can avoid it. And obviously, I think the games that matter the most in this division are happening as we speak, and then are happening on Wednesday. But I'm going to do a little bit of an audible here from what I wrote. Give me Grand Rapids and Chicago this weekend to see if Potts can get to 100. That's what I'll watch for. We'll see if it happens. And honestly, the scores race is coming down to it, y'all. It's going to be close between Potts and Tynan, so we'll see what happens.
Potts Century Club. I'm all for it. So finally, as we get on over the Pacific, we got Saturday's Stockton at Bakersfield. And, I kind of alluded to it in my hot take of the week, but, what do we think, gang? Does Stockton get that first overall seed? Well, we'll know by the end of this one, that's for sure.
No doubt. And I'm going to look over, same game, but Bakersfield's got a lot to play for. They can jump Colorado. Colorado is done playing for the year until the playoffs start, I should say. And again, seeding is going to matter a lot in this division because, you get reseeded after this first round and you want to jostle for as much position as possible. Third in the division isn't out of the question for Bakersfield if they get some help from Abbotsford. So, and if they win out themselves. So it'll be fun to watch to see how this one shakes out.
All right. Well, we just have one segment left in the show, and that is our THG bonus round. Andrew was the winner last week. So what do you have for us?
This is inspired by our special guest today, Patrick Williams. I always like to do something revolving around guests or some kind of big theme that's going on along with our show. So Patrick used to be the beat writer for the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets host the same or are hosted in the same barn as the Manitoba Moose. And as we get into the playoffs here, I was looking at the Moose's history, both their first and second iteration. I also learned that there was a Minnesota Moose that was related to them. But we're talking about Manitoba here. And in 2009, the Manitoba Moose had what many would argue would be their best season in franchise history. I'm going to ask y'all, where did they finish in the postseason that season? And then the tiebreaker will be where they finished in the regular season, if y'all guess the same.
I'm going to say it's heartbreaking. It has to be heartbreaking. I'm going to say they lost in the finals.
I will say that they lost in the conference finals.
Jeremy, you were correct. It was heartbreaking because, the province of Manitoba can't have anything nice. But, yeah.
Did they lose to, Hershey or something, dumb?
They lost to Hershey.
Sure.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Do you have the lottery numbers for this week, too, or...
Yeah, if you're going for your pick 3, you're going to want to pick 1, 8, and 7.
Okay. I dig it. I mean, can you tell me the MVP of that Hershey team?
Oh, God, no.
it was Sabres legend Michael Neuwirth, but
Oh,
yeah.
Michael Neuwirth.
Yeah. So yeah, congratulations, Jeremy. You take another one home.
Thank you so much. It gets easier for me when there are only 3 hosts on the show for a week. I usually like my odds a little bit better then, but nevertheless. I was gonna say this might be the first time I've ever like authentically won a bonus round. Like where I'm not like just like stealing it from somebody.
Right.
I think so. All right, guys, that is going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please subscribe, like, share, and rate this podcast. Tell all your friends. If you really like us, be sure to give us all a follow on Twitter. You can find my AHL coverage at FPH Monsters.
You can find me at FPH Griffins, or if you're interested in playoff content, you can follow me at FPH Wolves.
Fair. Well, if you're not interested in playoff content, you can follow me at FPH Americans, and it'll be a great time.
And yes, we will be giving we'll also be sharing playoff coverage from quite a few of our FPH accounts. Maybe not necessarily the team that the handle lines up with, but we'll make sure to get as many of these series covered as possible because it's going to be a marathon of a postseason. But you can catch all of our written work at fieldpasshockey.com. And be sure to check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts, including Inside the SPHL with James Hayes, as they go into their finals, their championship. And again, if you want to listen to some playoff hockey content, Syracuse Speaks with Alexandra Ackerman. She covers the Syracuse Crunch for us. She's going to have a lot of great insight as the playoffs continue for the Crunch. And then, well, you've got Monsters Musings with Jacob Forrester and myself, of course, all about the Cleveland Monsters. We have one more weekly episode coming your way. Next week is a nice little season roundup. But on behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we're going to see you next Thursday for some playoffs action. Bye.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.